On the eve of another debt auction, Spain says it is open to a bond-buying plan run by the Eurozone Rescue Fund. Speaking to CNBC, Economy Secretary José Manuel Campa says he is not concerned that the ECB is no longer purchasing peripheral bonds. Stefan caught up with Minister Campa on a roadshow in Paris. And Stefan, I don't think the ECB was buying Spanish bonds, were they?
Not officially, but you know, they never officially disclose what they're going to do. That's the part of the game. José Manuel Campa, as you mentioned, was yesterday in Paris. It's the first step of the roadshow to convince private investors, because later this week Spain will issue between 3 and 4 billion euro on the bond markets, some 3 and 5 year bonds, and could pay a lower premium than it paid the last time in January. José Manuel Campa also wants to convince investors that the Spanish banking sector will be healthier, in a better shape after the recapitalization process. The banks in Spain will have to increase their core capital ratio to at least 8% by September. This is going to help them to pass the new stress tests, but their exposure to the real estate market remains a big concern, and it could actually jeopardize their ability to raise some fresh capital from private investors. I've asked José Manuel Campa if the Cajas will manage to convince private investors.
I'm confident that the Cajas are good, sound institutions, in broadly speaking, and I'm confident that they will be able to do. They've been engaging in a major transformation structurally and integration process, and they're going to be able to make a big effort and a good case for their investments. Whether they can convince the markets or not, we'll check on time. I'm confident with them. But we also have to realize that the challenge is very important. These are institutions that have not accessed equity markets in the past. For many of them, it's a novel exercise. And for investors, it's also a novel product, to have the opportunity to invest in these corporations. So that's a situation in which, even if they're perfectly, attractive investments, they could be reluctant just because they're novice. And that's why the importance of having the backstop.
But do you understand why some foreign investors don't really trust the valuation of the Spanish banks?
Well, what I think is important, and what investors should do, is that Spain has done, and the financial institutions in particular, an extraordinary effort on transparency and in providing information, disclosing information.
What about the economic forecast for this year? Do you believe that the 6% public deficit target is at risk, given the Cajas recapitalization plan, and also the fact that the economic growth could be, in the end, weaker than expected?
We have to distinguish between the two parts. As you know, the government has made it very clear that the 6% target, it's an unconditional target, and it's a top priority of economic policy. So we will do whatever it takes, and we said this several times, to guarantee that the 6% deficit is not in question or a risk, as you suggest. Now, in terms of the two potential risks that you just highlighted, the first one, which is the recapitalization of the savings banks, we have to keep in mind, and this is very important, this is a recapitalization that, if the fraud participants, will be done on market terms, under a viability plan, in regular shares for companies that are perceived to be viable. So this will not affect the deficit. Will increase to the amount that it requires capital injection, will increase the level of debt, but will not have an impact on deficit. The second point is on the point of economic growth. And here we've been very clear as well, this is unconditional on the growth forecast. Nevertheless, even if you think about the differences in the growth forecast between the Spanish government that's on our budget and the average of analysts, it's a difference that I think is about 0.6 percentage points of GDP. Now, the implication of this for public accounts is very, very small.
When you say that you will do whatever it takes to reach this 6% target, does it mean that you would be able to announce more austerity measures if necessary?
Well, that's what it means to do whatever it takes, right? To announce measures and implement, not just announce, but implement measures if needed.
And regarding the bank's exposure to the real estate market, because this is a crucial point in Spain, we have more indication this morning. BBVA, the second largest bank in Spain, announced that the bad loans represented 4.1% of its total loans book at the end of December, down from 4.3% a year ago, and that's to compare with 6.34% for BFA, which is the new bank created by Caja Madrid. 6.3%, it's still a significant number. It's reasonable according to José Manuel Campa, but of course it's a matter of view. Steve.
Thank you, Stefan. Right, let's move on. Domenico Crapanzano is the head of European Rate Sales and Trading Group at Jefferies & Co. and joins us now on set. Dominica, thank you very much indeed for joining us. Look, we are going to have in Europe, this is my basic premise, a sovereign debt issue for at least a decade. That's my opinion. Some people think more, some people think less. But I think we're going to have an issue for at least a decade. But is the crisis nearing the end?
Well, the two things are probably related. You know, clearly there's a lot. We've gone from absolute panic about 3 weeks ago